family. Welcome back to another episode of Hospitality Bites. I'm your host, Jana Devine. I am a service expert in hospitality, but also in customer service-based knowledge. And I'm very happy to be here. This is always so excited. I'm so proud to be a part of this Caterlane family. I think we're doing amazing things. We have wonderful coaches. You should come and check out the other coaches too. We really put a lot of heart and a lot of knowledge into these workshops for you guys. And we hope that you get so much out of it, because really this is all about education. This is not anymore about gatekeeping information. This is all about let's share what we all know to make our world and our industry so much better. And of course, my world is the world of hospitality. And I'm so excited today about this workshop. I want to dive into right away, but before I do that, here are just some quick announcements. My workshops are literally created for actual real life participants. So I would love for everybody to come and participate. You don't need to wait. You can just chime in with your question. Every question here will be answered. So feel free to be a part of this amazing experience. This is not just about me. This is about you too. And again, this is all about learning and educating ourselves and everybody that is watching. So yeah, with that being said, my workshop today is about the secret to unforgettable hospitality. And are you delivering good or outstanding service, right? And so this question actually can go both ways. It could go to any owner that currently runs any hospitality floor. It could be a restaurant, casino, country club, restaurant, Airbnb, a catering company from home or like in big ways. But it also really relates to the staff itself. You know, are you a good server, or are you an outstanding server, host, manager, bartender, barback, busboy, what have you? And also it goes out to any owner actually out there that runs any kind of industry related business where you're touching the public, right? Because the public really is our client. And I live in the world of hospitality, so that's really my most favorite water to swim in. But yeah, that's that. And so let's dive in. You know, I feel like most restaurants really provide good service in general, right? Like when we go somewhere, you know, we're obviously being greeted, sometimes faster, sometimes slower. But in general, the whole idea of, you know, going to restaurants or hotels, we do receive some type of service. And most of them are actually somewhat okay. But really, my question is, you know, what does really good service mean, and what does really outstanding service mean? And this is really what I want to break into the session today, because I feel like, you know, outstanding service versus good service to me has many differences. So, you know, good service is obviously something where you're being seated on time, you know, you're being served in a timely manner, you know, your meal arrives at a timely manner, the staff that is, you know, serving you hopefully is professional and polite, and everything sort of runs smoothly, right? But really, what is outstanding service? Actually, what is the difference between outstanding service? That really changes the game here. And I feel like, to me, the difference between good and outstanding service is always the attention to detail. Like, the attention to detail is so imperative to so many things. If we are really paying attention to how we're interacting already with guests that have never stepped into our business, our establishment at the first time, that first interaction, and actually I'm gonna take it a step back, it actually starts already with your host, right? When your host is answering first the phones, and the way they're speaking to your guests on the phone can already make or break this customer, this client, this guest wanting to even come and visit your establishment. And this, again, is obviously related to hospitality, but can really relate to any industry, because if somebody already that is being treated very short, like a transactional idea on the phone, they're most likely don't want to even come and get the full experience, because it's like, why do I need to come? If I'm being shortcut already on the phone, I'm just getting straight, literally, you know, transactional information. So why do I want to take it to the next level and actually visit this establishment? And, you know, when we talk about the differences, when we're just take the server as an example, and we take the server as an example where it's attention to detail, when a okay server, a mediocre server, a good server steps to the table, you know, obviously one of the first questions is usually that they introduce themselves or that they, you know, right away offer something to drink. And most of the time they offer some water. But really already here, we can tell that certain times offering just water can already be a missed opportunity in upselling. And what I mean by that is that I truly believe that most of the restaurants or hotels out there, they offer two types of water. It's either regular ice water or it's bottled water. And so obviously bottled water is really something that we want to train our staff to sell. And why? Because it drives our ROI. It drives the waiter's tips, and it also gives the guest another idea of variety. Variety is a great thing for guests. Guests love variety. I love variety. I love to, you know, go somewhere and just get the full blown variety of like, I can have this, I can have that, I could play with this or with that. And so that really, to begin with, is really the one of the biggest difference between being a good server and being an outstanding server is really the attention to detail. And so, you know, when you interact with somebody, the next step obviously would be, would you like some water? But then further down the line, you know, it's obviously always opportunities to upsell. So another great way for you to differentiate yourself from being a good server or you being an outstanding server is to train your staff, or actually you, if you are the staff, to really understand that, you know, you can ask right away if the guest would like to have a drink to start, an aperitif. An aperitif is something that people usually do before a meal. And with that being said, you know, that's already another idea of you chiming in and breaking ice with the guest. You know, introducing yourself, asking the guests if they want to have like an aperitif or start off the evening or their day with like maybe something from the bar, besides selling just water. And then obviously timing is really big here. And I have to excuse myself for 1 second because I don't want my laptop to die. Let me figure this out. Hopefully this will work. Did it work? Yes. Okay. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. You know, so timing and execution is obviously huge in this, right? If we know and understand that our timing when our guests are stepping to the table and how the procedure would go down with what they offer first, what they do next, what is really the procedure of the waiter in this moment, right? And so there's ideas of how to really go about from the moment the guest steps into your restaurant until the time they leaves, which is really all about timing. Sometimes guests, they don't have the time to wait. They want to come in, they want to come out. They have a quick lunch on their lunch break. They want to catch a salad. They want to check some emails. They want to be on their phone, eat, and then they leave. But sometimes people do take the time. Now, how do we differentiate and how do we know what mode the guest is currently in? And I like to teach it from body language, right? So if you go about body language and you observe your guests, and you step to the table and you kind of find a way of ice breaking, you can already tell in what mood they are in. When guests usually order very fast, they come in and they order very fast, you can tell that they don't have a whole lot of time. They come in, they know exactly what they want, and they want to leave, right? But if that doesn't happen, it's always a fantastic idea to use that extra time to really introduce the establishment, introduce yourself as a server, introduce the concept. Also honor the guests for being here. You know, sentences like, have you ever lunched with us before? Have you ever dined with us before? Are fantastic icebreakers to just make the guests feel warm and welcome. And, you know, when we, you know, take the next step and now the guest has ordered, where does timing play in here? I feel like a big part of timing here plays in where we need to make sure that when something arrives to the guest, we want to double check and see if what has arrived was really what they have ordered, right? Because sometimes there can be miscommunication. There could be something that the guest is saying, but actually they didn't meant to say that. But here it is. It's the wrong dish maybe, or it's the wrong, you know, it's the wrong start, or it's the wrong side, or it's whatever. So it's a really good idea to also train your staff on a timely manner. And if I would have to give a time frame, as soon as a plate gets dropped in front of a guest, the meal that they ordered, I would give it about 3 minutes max for the waiter to go back and really double check and touch the table and really ask, how does everything taste? Does everything look well to you? Are you satisfied? Are you happy? Just that quick touch-up table is so much worth, and it really will help the server to actually, transform from good service to excellent service, because now the guest is also feeling like that they are being paid attention to, that there are, being asked what is going on, what is not going on, what is happening, what is not happening. And so with that, it's an easier way to deliver outstanding service. And so, obviously everything that our people, our waiters are presenting to us while they're working for us on the floor has everything to do with the execution, with the product knowledge, and with the paying attention. Because if they don't have one or the other, or they don't have all three, then it's going to be really challenging for them to execute in a proper way for you. And so training here is so imperative, because not everybody understands perfect timing. It's the same when, for instance, let's say your waiter has a table of 4 people and he takes the order, or she takes the order from all 4 people, but everybody ordered something to start with, a soup or a salad or a light appetizer, and then also a main course. Now, how do you really know when to fire the next course? And more importantly, how do you really train your staff on proper execution, right? And proper execution is key here, because nobody wants to come out, which is really one-on-one hospitality. Nobody wants to eat by themselves, right? So when people come out for lunch in company, they usually want to enjoy their meal in company. They want to break bread together. And so nobody really wants to have somebody else's meal delivered, yet, I'm not having my meal at all. That doesn't make the group feeling nice. The vibe is being thrown off. And it also, in all honesty, really makes like a not so professional picture on your team, because they didn't have their timing or their execution prepared in the right ways. And one way of how to really greatly teaching that is to also teach your staff to remember timing. So there has to be a flow, right? There's always a flow. When I take an order, when I go and introduce myself at the table, now I have the order. Now I know a little bit about the guest. Oh, they want to start off with an aperitif. They want to start off with an appetizer. This gives them time to look over the menu. This gives me time as the waiter to go back and actually introduce the concept, introduce the menu, have conversation, build that rapport with the guest. Because really fundamentally, an outstanding server differentiates itself also from not needing to read from the menu. They know the menu. They know the product. They know exactly what the kitchen is capable of and what is not. They know exactly what can be substituted and what can be not. They also know how their chef works. In some industries, our chefs are a little bit more lenient and a little bit more flexible. And in some, they're very strict and very, no, this is my menu. I'm not changing anything. Either you like it or you don't. And that's just what it is. But, those are the things that, can be executed for your staff as well by training them on proper education. And that actually, when you put those 3 things together and you allow now your staff to kind of like put their own twist on it, but with rules and guidelines of how they need to go about making this first time experience for the guest really memorable, I would say paying detail to attention, teaching them proper timing and helping them to execute the craft of serving somebody else in a proper way could be really extremely helpful. And so I'm not quite sure if all of this, what I so far had made sense. So far, I haven't seen any questions, but I hope it does. And speaking of questions, it just one popped up. How do you recognize and reward team behaviors that create memorable guest moments? That's such a great, wonderful question. There's several ways how you can reward your team. You can reward your team by simply acknowledging them verbally, which is always a good thing. Words of affirmation is a love language that a lot of people carry. And it's very effective, and it's very easy to do if you know how to use your words. For some people that are more acts of service, it's a little bit more challenging to use their words. But you can acknowledge them verbally by simply saying simple things. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being part of my team. Thank you for being such a great waiter. Thank you for doing an amazing job. But you can also take it the next level and really create bonus plans for your people, right? Like there's bonus plans. You can, can create like a little competitive feeling of like, okay, in the next 3 months, everybody's on their own, or you can, if you have a bigger team, you can put them in specific groups and tell the specific groups or tell the individual people of like, this is the revenue. If you accomplish this within this and this time frame, you'll get, for instance, a beautiful bottle of red wine. Or you, for instance, get, the best cooked meal and you can take it home to your family for free. Or I invite you for lunch of your choice. I'll give you a gift card of, I don't know, X amount of dollars. Go and have lunch on me. Or if you really want to come out of the gate, you could possibly, and please check that with the legal systems in your states, wherever you are, maybe give them a free paid day off. People really strive on rewards. People strive on accomplishments. People love guidelines, and people love to be rewarded, and everybody loves a freebie. Everybody loves a freebie. I love a freebie. You love a freebie. Everybody loves freebies. And, sometimes just really those encouraging moments of like, this is really what you can accomplish here, being part of my staff, being part of my team. As soon as the team knows that, it makes them feel like they're part of something bigger other than themselves. And if they then also get rewarded for doing bigger things, why would they stop doing big things for you? It rewards them. It rewards you. It makes your guests happy. It's a no-brainer for me to why not implement bonus programs. And this could be budgeted on every individual owner's budget. The ideas that I just thrown out are just ideas. They don't have to be that. They can also just be a simple Starbucks card. Just showing appreciation on any level really is how you reward your staff for really good behavior, and also bringing in revenue for you. Because remember, your people are your money makers, right? Your staff is really the actual money-making machine. Like, it starts with your host, it's your waiter, it's even your busboys, it's your barbacks, it's your bartenders, it's your management, it's your floor manager. All of those people are actually creating wealth for you if they're trained in a proper way, because they're all putting their own magic energy into your establishment of really making your guests feel warm and welcomed and cared for. And so why not reward them? Even if you throw maybe once a year a big staff company barbecue, or you take everybody out to a water park, or something where your staff really feels like, what, I really like working here. And, in other ways, rewarding your team could also mean that you create safe space for them, right? Verbal safe spaces where they really feel that they can step to you and they can actually talk to you about anything and everything, what they maybe need on the floor, maybe concerns that they have, maybe interactions with other staff members, or the way they feel, how they've been treated. Like, those are all great, rewarding ideas of allowing your staff to really flourish and speak truth as well. So I hope that answered the question. How do you gather feedback in a way that guests actually respond to? Wait, I gotta read this again. How do you gather feedback in a way that guests actually respond to? Well, the feedback is actually created by the guest. And when we talk about feedback that is amongst the team, that is translated onto the guest, I would say teamwork is super important. Guests do react on seeing and feeling that the team is working in a team. It's noticeable right away. Like, this isn't something that you need to be a hospitality expert to notice this. You can just be a regular guest having nothing to do with the industry at all. But you notice, if you step into an establishment where you understand that the team is vibing amongst each other, it gives you an automatic feeling of, wow, I like it here. I feel good here. I feel safe, right? And then feedback in general, you create good feedback is when you provide good service. In all honesty, if you provide good service, if you provide kind service, if you provide attentive service, if you provide good tasting meals, if you have kind people working on your floors and they're really for your guests and they learn the do's and the don'ts, then you automatically create feedback, guests wanting to tell you. Will every guest take it to the next level and write a Yelp or a Google review? Probably they won't, because they maybe live life and don't want to take out time of their day to do so. But will they verbally say and speak about your establishment if it was a great experience or a negative one? 1,000%. You see the difference these days between, social media and actual word of mouth. Word of mouth still and always will have so much power because it's coming from an actual source, going to another actual source. And I understand that social media accounts are real sources too. Well, sometimes they are. But, when one person is really sharing with another human, like, hey, guess what? This restaurant, this hotel, this catering company, this Airbnb was amazing because of this and this and this and this. Or in the unfortunate way, the other way, hey, guess what? Don't go there because that has so much impact. And you can create these impacts to be positive or negative the way you provide service, the way you are providing your establishment, the way you are presenting your establishment, your concept, and you're training your people to execute the concept. So I hope that answered the question too. What scripts help your team offer helpful suggestions without sounding salesy? I give you one example. So imagine a guest is sitting there in company having a glass of wine and his date, company, whatever, has a cocktail, right? So one way of not sounding salesy is if you train your staff to step to the table and use verbiage like, would you like me to refresh your cocktail? Instead of saying, would you like another cocktail? I feel like that another cocktail sounds a little bit, I don't know, it doesn't sound appealing to me. It sounds almost like another one versus, just using correct verbiage for upselling skills. It's the same way of saying, for instance, so what you're trying to say is that this will cost extra money, but instead of saying it will be more money, you can train your staff to say there will be an additional charge to that. And so sales can really come naturally out of a conversation. Sales isn't really something that needs to be, in a sense, created. A sales in my world really always comes out of a natural organic conversation, a natural organic interaction where I'm listening to the person speaking in front of me by asking the correct questions. So if I'm setting up my waiters to ask correct questions, the sales is being done by itself because you don't need to sell a bottle of wine if you train your staff to properly speak on this bottle of wine with the proper knowledge, with the proper education of decanting the wine and serving the wine and presenting the wine. And so, when you want to upsell, for instance, a Wagyu steak from a regular steak, there's no need to say that the steak is more money. It just is all about the verbiage and how you present the steak verbally to your guest, right? And so you take it up on yourself, but you go in a way of asking the proper questions. For this example, let's say I would step to the table and train my staff to say, how do you feel today? What do you like to eat today? Are you very hungry? Are you lightly hungry? Is it more a salad? Is it more a pasta dish? Maybe some more meat? And then when the guest goes automatically from themselves into the idea of meat, this is where I will then now give another choice or another two choices because I trained my staff to know my menu. So obviously they can talk on the three meat choices that are now can be verbally presented. And B, the way we present those dishes, we're not talking about any amounts. We're only talking about the actual dish. And so when the guest chooses the most expensive dish, it's not a coincidence. It's because you trained your staff to verbally speak on those dishes in a sales way without being salesy. You're just presenting it more in a vibrant, more visual way. Hope that makes sense. And on that note, I also want to put out that these questions are wonderful. You can read those in my book. It's called Built to Serve, Trained to Lead. It's right now on Amazon, where I have a separate chapter just towards verbiage of hospitality. So feel free to, check that out on Amazon. Not quite sure if I can place the link in here, but if I can, I will. If not, just look for the title. But I saw another question and then it disappeared. I would love to answer another question. But yeah, so I hope that answered the question with being salesy on the floor and not salesy, and how to really deliver actually a fantastic service and differentiate yourself again from being, a good server versus an outstanding server, right? And so when we talk about, that the welcome is really what matters the most, right? Like when we welcome our people, that's the most that matters into this world at all. Because at any time when we approach our guests, we want to be appropriate to the establishment that we're working in. So let's say, for instance, our establishment is a fun, vibrant sports bar, right? Like you don't necessarily need to train your staff to say hello and welcome and good evening and good afternoon. You can train your staff to be a little bit more vibrant, right? To be a little bit more like, hey guys, and welcome and hello. And, so the welcome, how we are welcoming our guests has to match the actual concept of what we're selling in our establishment. And I hope that makes sense. There was another question. How do you train staff to greet, guide, and check in with the host at the right moment? So, the host is really your first pillar, right? Normally it is. So that means your first training should really go towards the host. And the host has so much power, and sometimes you underestimate hostesses or hosts at a restaurant or a hotel, because all we think about, they look pretty and they see people, but really they're doing actually so much more, because they are really the pillar of the whole restaurant. Not only should they be educated on the floor plan, but they should also be educated on the fact of what waiter has what section and how many tables does this waiter have and how many can he handle more to go. And so when we start with the host, right, the host has already the information of the guest because the guest is checking in. So let's say I'm the host, you're checking in. Hello, Mrs. Devine, how are you? Thank you so much. I'm wanting to check in. I have my table today, 7:30. Okay, great. Now the host can already translate that information, my name, because it's in the reservation, to the actual waiter. And so when the waiter steps to my table, they already know my name. But how do they know? Simply because we created in our establishment a proper communication cycle where one information is properly delivered to another person. And one person is giving the other person the proper information, and the guest will feel the difference between good service and outstanding service, because it's all about what you do with this information, and it's all about how you train this information to get delivered to where it needs to go. And so that really is, in a sense, when you guide your staff, when you are training them, when you're helping them really with the host to be in tune, and with the host to also catch the right moment with this waiter. Because there's always short moments where the host can grab the waiter very quick and give the waiter a quick educational thing. For instance, if it's in the notes prepared, it's an anniversary, it's VIP, they don't like red meat, they whatever. And all those notes should be translated to your staff in order for your staff to really give that outstanding service, because now they have all this info about the guest, and the guest is thinking, oh my God, this is amazing. I've never told this person I don't like red meat, but yet they know. That's wonderful. So they're not even presenting it to me. They're not even talking to me about that, because they already know it. It wouldn't be on my interest. Right. And so those are kind of like the things that, you train your staff, your host to guide the rest of your staff, because really the host is the first face of the establishment and is, should gather as many informations as possible. But this is exactly also where the welcome matters so much, because, only when the host really does the seamless checking, the seamless service of answering all the questions, putting the guest into the right mode, putting the right information into the system, is really when all of this can be rescued. Because now when we have our waiters step to the table, there's no need for red flags anymore. There's no need for oh my God, I said this already on the phone. I mentioned this while I had my reservation. And the guest also doesn't feel like I got to repeat my life story over and over. I already told it to one person. Why can't your internal communication not be a part? And so this is exactly where, again, outstanding service is differentiated because of those details that are actually physically being executed. Another question, what small touches on arrival signal care with the first 30 seconds? Not quite sure if I understand the question right, but what small touches on arrival signal care with the first 30 seconds? I think eye contact in general is a fantastic thing in any kind of matter of seconds. Just acknowledging the guest with your eyes. It doesn't matter if you happen to be on the phone or if you are maybe having another guest that you're dealing with prior to that, but just looking around and giving eye contact to the guest that is actually behind standing there or looking at you is already for a short moment a good enough thing for the guest to feel acknowledged at least, right? And I think in the first 30 seconds is a really good idea of breaking ice very fast by just being welcoming and inviting yourself. So if we train our staff from ourself to be welcoming and kind, then we're translating that energy automatically to the guest. So if we train our staff to be like, hi, thank you so much for being here. Welcome. My name is Jana. Then you already make the guest feel like, oh, okay, nice. And so these are the icebreakers that really will actually make a huge difference. And again, won't raise any flags, right? And service in general, I feel like when we talk about really receiving amazing service from a waiter, specifically in a restaurant, to me, my biggest pet peeve has always been and will probably always be is that while I'm either still eating or I literally just finished my meal, that the check is being dropped and then the sentence is being said, but no rush. And to me, that part, the rushing goodbye, feels really, well, first of all, it's very unprofessional, in my opinion. Like, you shouldn't really drop a check before the guest didn't ask. And there's several reasons. One great reason for that is that you're not even allowing your guests to actually digest their food, which really you're missing an upsell opportunity, because if they had proper time to digest food for a minute, they probably would have maybe thought of, oh, actually something sweet sounds wonderful right now, or maybe an espresso martini after my meal for my dessert, or maybe something sweet, or maybe my meal was so amazing that I actually want to take the same meal to go for my spouse, for my child, for my girlfriend, for my mother, for my whoever, right? And so those are all times that are being missed by rushing the check. And the second bad thing that is happening where we're just dropping the check is that we are making the guest automatically feel like that they have to rush. Immediately there's a wave of, okay, the check got dropped, they need the table, we got to go, feeling comes up, when in reality, is there techniques of doing so when we are busy, such as Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, Thanksgiving, and all those major holidays where we really need every single table because we turn them around 3-4 kind, respectful ways of telling that to the guest way up front. To, for instance, say, we're very busy today, but we're so happy for you to be here. Unfortunately, we're only able to offer you this seat today for a couple of hours. We just want to let you know from the beginning. Everybody will understand because it's a busy holiday. But if your restaurant naturally is busy and you want to turn tables over, yet you're not wanting to miss out on ROI, there's still ways of how to do that. You should not train your staff to just immediately drop the check, because it's not inviting. It's actually exciting. It's not inviting at all. It really makes the guest feel like, oh my God, I haven't even finished my meal. I couldn't even think about if I wanted dessert because the check got dropped. And I think those are all missed opportunities right here. Okay, next question. I love questions. A great thing that hosts can do when making reservations is asking them if they're celebrating anything and noting that on the reservation, especially if you're using OpenTable. Yes, 1,000%. Yes to that. So agree. Because really, especially if you're using OpenTable or any kind of other reservation system, most reservation systems are built with notes in. And this is a great way for the host to absolutely gather as much as information as possible for several reasons again. So what we always want to gather is name, last name, email, phone number possibly, and any kind of notes that would really help the establishment to give outstanding service, such as Is there an anniversary we're celebrating? Is there a birthday? What is the occasion you're coming in to dine with us? Have you ever been here before? How have you heard of us? What usually is, your go-to? Or if they have any questions on the phone towards the menu, it's also a great way to allow your hostesses to step up to the table and really teach them about the menu as well. Because guests that are calling, or people that are calling an establishment, all they want an answer. They don't want to hear, I don't know. They don't want to hear, you need to call me back. They don't have time for that. They just call to get an actual information. And the more we train our staff on knowing these informations in regards to the business, of course, and the products that we're selling, the better we can provide service, outstanding service. And so I think noticing, and thanks for this question so much, noticing if there is really important occasions is a wonderful way, because now that I have this info as the host, and now that the guest is actually coming to dine for their time, I can translate that information seamlessly to my waiter, to my manager. In case maybe this person is complaining, now we already know they were here for their anniversary. So damage control can be handled in a much more effective way when we have more detailed information. And so, yeah, you guys, that is it kind of from me, from my end for today. But, as mentioned, feel free to scan my barcode. I'm happy to help. And I'm so grateful to be a part of Cater LinkedIn family for this opportunity. I hope this was valuable to somebody out there. And, until then, stay rooted, stay grounded, and always stay connected to love, the strongest force in the universe. See you next month.